Today as we honor our veterans. Today is Veterans Day, and across this nation there are parades, there have been services, memorials, to remember and thank to the Lord for those who donned the uniform for one of our services to give us, to protect us, to have this right to come and worship. So we want to honor our veterans today, and we have a program ahead of us. And we'll begin with Shelby Nyland coming to Spencer. Spencer would like to come and lead us in our pledge, the flag of the United States of America. Come to attention.
Please stand for the reading of for the saying of the pledge and remain standing for the singing of the national anthem. I pledge allegiance to the flag.
To honor veterans of all wars, Raymond Weeps of Birmingham, Alabama, organized a Veterans Day parade for that city on November 11, 1947, to honor all of America's veterans for their loyal service. Later, the United States Representative Edward H. Reese of Kansas proposed legislation changing the name of Armistice Day to Veterans Day to honor all who have served in America's armed forces. In 1954, President Dwight D. Eisenhower signed a bill proclaiming November 11th as Veterans Day and called upon Americans everywhere to rededicate themselves to the cause of peace. He issued a presidential order directing the head of the Veterans Administration, now the Department of Veterans Affairs, to form a Veterans Day National Committee to organize and oversee the national observance of Veterans Day. In addition to fulfilling that mission, the committee oversees the annual production and distribution of the annual Veterans Day poster and this teacher resource guide.
In 1968, Congress moved Veterans Day to the fourth Monday in October. However, it became apparent that the November 11th date was more historically significant to a great many Americans. As a result, Congress formally returned the observance of Veterans Day to its traditional date in 1978. The Veterans Day National Ceremony is held each year on November 11th at Arlington National Cemetery. At 11 a.m., a color guard made up of members from each of the military services renders honors to America's war dead during a tradition-rich ceremony at the Tomb of the Unknowns. The President or his representative places a wreath at the tomb and a bugler sounds taps. The balance of the ceremony, including a parade of flags by numerous veterans service organizations, takes place inside the Memorial Amphitheater adjacent to the tomb. Veterans, please stand when the song of your branch of service is sung.
impact do veterans play in our past and our history? Veterans play a very important role in our lives. They are the keys to our past and future. They will most likely be able to tell you the many stories that occurred while serving our country. From the times of hanging out with friends they met in training to the times where they weren't exactly sure if they would live to see tomorrow. Veterans hold many interesting facts and information that have to do with their defending of our country. Veterans affect our history for many different reasons. They are living proof of the stories and wars and battles we hear about in our history books. There are only a fraction of these men and women in these stories of defending our nation, but truthfully, would you have taken any of their places? They fought hard for our freedom and even harder for their own lives. They never knew what would come next. Not only have the veterans who have already fought for our country played a prime role in our past history, but the men and women who are fighting now will play some part in our nation's future. They will be putting their lives on the line just like the men and women before them. These soldiers will be ambassadors for our nation to protect our freedom. They will fight just as or even harder than the men who have fought before them. No matter what period in time it is, veterans have and always will put their lives on the line so that we may have the freedoms we now have. We must always thank them for what they went through and the sacrifices they made so we may live the way we are now, free. We do not have to worry about being killed because of our religion or being silenced for trying to voice our opinions or losing any of our freedoms. Because these men and women fight for our country daily, we have the privilege of keeping our freedoms.
It is my honor to introduce my papa, Fred Boggs. He was a staff sergeant in the U.S. Marine Corps, and he served on board the USS Toledo CA-133 in the Pacific during the occupation of Japan after World War II, and also served stateside during the Korean War. Please welcome my papa.
I appreciate it on behalf of other veterans and so forth. But this is an honor, and I'd appreciate it. I feel like a fish sometimes out of the water, but this is my first time that I've done something like this. So just bear with me. I want to tell you that I became a Christian when I was 10 years old. As I came out of the bad street, there was two young men there to meet me. That was Brother Chuck Stewart and his brother Clarence. And a little later, on December the 7th, 1941, as I was leaving the Florida Baptist Church going home, I passed by the grocery store. And inside, they had a radio and there's some people listening to the news. So I was curious, and I went in to see what was going on. And they told me that the Japanese had just bombed Pearl Harbor. And this news, I knew, would change our lives. Because we were now at war. And immediately it seems like that young men began to flock to recruiting stations. They wanted to join up. People began to save scrap metal on paper. And some began to grow, have a victory garden. And many changes were taking place. Some people started collecting, and everyone did, started collecting paper, scrap metal, and things changed in the industry. They stopped making automobiles. In fact, the automobiles went off the assembly line between 1942 and the end of the war in 1945. But these automobiles were replaced by tanks. a boy named Elwood Oakley. He was joined the Navy, and he was stationed aboard ship just off the coast of North Carolina. A German U-boat sunk the ship, and all men were killed. They say that a porpoise pushed his body ashore. But they sent the body home, and it was the first body to come to Ashland after the war started. So, when I was 11 years old, I had a paper route. I had route number 19A. We have 110 customers. And several things that are very important. At that time, very few people had radios, and the newspaper was very important. Everyone looked forward to getting a newspaper and see what was going on. But a newspaper, you hold on to your hats when you find out I tell you how much it costs. The paper was 18 cents a week. That's daily. If you got a paper on Sunday, it's 7 cents more. So the paper is very important, and I want to tell you one little thing. I laugh at it now, but when I on this paper route, my place where I started was at the grocery store. It was at Kirk Street over in Pollard. My route went down Pollard Road, out Long Street, back down up Harrison Street to 6th Street, from 6th Street back out to Blackburn, from Blackburn back where I started from. Well, each day I all went the same way. Started and went down Pollard Road. But there was a man that was very anxious to get his paper. So, 11 years old, I thought one day, you know, that's not right. Because the people on the circle on the other end, they're always last getting their papers. So I thought, well, I'll just change. That was a mistake. So this man, he told me more or less in no certain terms. I told him, well, I did it. And he said, well, I want my paper first. So from then on, that's what I had to do. But when I was 12 years old, I got a job at a grocery store. I started off one day oiling the floor for me. He wanted somebody to oil the floor. And after I did that, he said, how would you like to work for me? I said, well, it sounds good to me. So I went from passing papers to working in the store. I did a little of everything he asked me to do, but eventually I was cutting meat. And one thing that I wanted to tell you is I don't remember exactly how old I was. I was either 14 or 15. And as you know, all the young men had gone to war, and there was no one left at home except maybe older people or people that couldn't pass physical to get in. So they let me drive a truck. I had no license to drive, but I was needed. So I used to drive the truck before I learned to drive, Route 168, going to Miller's Meat Market. And when I went there to get meat, whenever meat was available. As you know, meat was scarce. And we had things that were rationed, and meat was rationed, gasoline, and sugar. Now, gasoline, they had two different stamps that I remember. One was for cars and one for trucks. The cars got 5 gallons and trucks got 10. And I don't remember what period or how long that was supposed to last. But as time went on, when I was 17 years old in April. In May, I graduated from high school. And the first day of July, I joined the Marine Corps. And my parents had to sign for me because of my age. So I was sent to Paris Island for boot training, and then I went to administrative school, and then in February of 1948, I was assigned to board USS Toledo. Now, USS Toledo is a heavy cruiser, and the ship's complement or crew, there were 1,100 sailors and 40 Marines. And our duty was to go to Southeast Asia, Far East, operate with the 7th Fleet. It was also took great part in the occupation of Japan. And, in the Far East, the Japanese had already controlled about all the Southeast. And right now, at this time, they were heading for the Philippines. The Philippines, General MacArthur was already ordered out. He went to Australia. And they left General Wainwright there. And they eventually ran out of food, they ran out of ammunition. So they had no other choice but to give up, surrender. And during this surrender, after they took over, the Japanese marched 58,000 men. I say marched, they walked 65 miles. And this 65 miles was a dreadful thing. Only 1 in 3 died. The other 2 lived. So it was a very dreadful march, and without water or food, what little, if they did get some, was very small. But after this death march, the Japanese sent these prisoners to all parts of the Japanese Empire. And one such man was Sergeant Collins. I'll tell you a little bit more about him later. When our ship went to Japan, we had a chaplain aboard ship who started what was called the Serviceman's Christian League. And this purpose was to help people that was in need. And I remember one time that we invited 50 orphan children from Japan that their parents were killed during the war. And they came aboard ship, we invited them, we showed them Mickey Mouse cartoons, and we also fed them a good meal. But there was one mistake we made. When we went to eat, we had placed down knives, silverware, forks. Well, the children, when they sat down, they picked up that fork and they looked at each other, and then they said, "Oh my, I wonder what we're going to do." Well, we realized our mistake, so we had to send someone into Yokosuka, Japan, to get 50 pair of chopsticks. So after they got the chopsticks and all, it really made them happy by smiling on their face. But there was other things that came up that we did. I remember one time we were in Sasebo, Japan. And Sasebo was a pretty good sized town. But we ran across a little girl. She was about 8 years old. And actually her clothes was nothing but rags. So this boy was with me. We decided we was going to outfit that little girl. So we went into the shop. And this lady that operated, she could speak English. We told her what we wanted, and she said, okay. So she started off with her, put a hat on her head, give her a kimono, and put offers or shoes on her feet, sandals. Well, you never seen anyone more happier, I don't think, than this little girl. And with a smile on her face, sometimes you think it brings tears to your eyes, get to see you. someone that had nothing, and now they had something. Well, I'm speaking of Sasebo. I'd like to tell you about a situation that happened there. You know, the United States had already dropped a bomb on Hiroshima. And this next atomic bomb they were going to drop was to be put at Sasebo. Well, due to the weather was bad and they couldn't bomb there. So they bombed Nagasaki. And unknown until later, the Japanese had 900 American prisoners aboard one of their ships at Sasebo. And if they had dropped the bomb, those 900 would have been killed. A little later, we were able to go to Nagasaki. Ship's crew, we got to play softball there. But the steel girders and the sign of the war was still there. And the next thing I'd like to tell you was when we were in Kobe, Japan. Kobe was a large city about the size of Chicago. And we went in there one day to eat. This restaurant. And after we sat down, the waitress came up and she took her order and she said, "What state are you from?" I said, "Kentucky." And she jumped in the air and clapped her hand and said, "Oh, Kentucky." And she hollered for her husband, and he came in, and he stood beside us, and they sung "My Old Kentucky Home." It didn't sound too much like it, but he knew what it was. So, anyway, I asked her, I said, "How come you to be able to do this?" And she said, "Well, we belong to a club. We wanted to know more about America and American people." And she said that we started picking out a state, and they began to learn the state motto, the state flower, the state bird. And she said it just happened that we finished Kentucky. Needless to say, we gave her a good tip. And but things, you know, they go on. And I was telling you about Sergeant Collins. Sergeant Collins was this man that was sent up to Yokohama. They were shipyard to work during the war as a prisoner. And the man that guarded him, the Japanese, slipped him a little food every now and then, and that's actually what kept him alive. And so after the war was over, and he was relieved, rescued, and after he was more or less rehabilitated, he went and rejoined the service. Because when the war was over, he lost 40 pounds and he was in bad shape. So they, after rehabilitated, he went aboard the USS Toledo. And now he was on the way to Japan. When we got there, first thing he did, he got off the train, or he got off the ship, and boarded the train, and went to Yokohama to see if he could relocate his guard. Well, we was kind of concerned, wondering, well, what is going to happen here? Somebody is a prisoner, somebody guarding him for 3 years. How was he to be received? Well, anyway, we didn't have anything to worry about because when we got there, we were relocated, and they embraced. They hugged one another. Sergeant Collins, to show his appreciation, he bought a refrigerator from Sir Roebuck, and he had that refrigerator sent to this man. And all the time that we were there, Japan, whenever he could, he got on the train and he went up to see him. So there's a lot of stories and things that I could tell you. And I don't know how time is going to be, but I do want to tell you about some of the situations and things that we were involved in. But I was very fortunate. I was will say that being with the fleet, 7th Fleet, we had a lot of cities and places we've been to, of the Philippines, we've been to Singapore, been to China, and India, Pakistan, and Ceylon, which is now Sri Lanka. And one thing I guess the Death March means so much to me is because I was able to be there, and not at the time, long after that, but I got to see where it took place. I got to see and imagine some of the things that happened. I know that when we were at the Philippines and we were there in Manila Bay, there were still ships there that sunk during the war, and the mast was still above the water. The naval base there at Cavite, there was young boys that their parents were killed, and they lived together. Maybe 3, 5 boys that lived together, and they would get out and shine shoes. And the one boy I know didn't have a leg, and he put a stick up there and rest he walked on. But I tell you, when you go around the world and see conditions and things, what's happening in other places, you really appreciate the country in which we live. I'm talking about Sergeant Collins. One thing I forgot to mention is this, the way I look at it. You know, time, they say, heals things. And in Sergeant Collins' position, it happened. Because after being prisoner for 3 years, and the war ended 3 years. This was in 48. But, you know, they say time heals wounds, and it certainly happened. Because at one time, you know, Japan was our worst enemy. And now, if you look around and notice, Japan is one of our strongest allies in the Pacific. After I served time aboard ship, I was aboard ship for over 2 years. And I came back, and in the States, discharged on June the 30th, 1950. I was out approximately 2 months. I started in college. And while I was there, I went home for lunch one day, and there's a big brown envelope on the mantel. And they say on the outside, official orders do not destroy. So I opened it up, looked inside, and they would call me back in. I was reported to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. So I went back into military service. I was at Camp Lejeune for 16 months. This was during the Korean War. But I must tell you, I never seen combat. I was there in a case. I would like to tell you about when I was 12 years old, my parents and I went out into the country. We went out to see some relatives. And my cousin and I, it was raining, we couldn't play outside, so we went to the attic. In the attic there, we went across some magazines that were printed in the period 16, 17, 1916, 1917. And I ran across this article in there. And it was an article about a young boy that was going into military service. And this is what he said. He said, "Goodbye, Mom. Goodbye, Paul. Goodbye, Mule with the old hee-haw. I don't know what this war's about, but by gosh, I'll soon find out. And oh, my sweetheart, don't you fear. I'll bring you a German for a souvenir." Now, and one way I think that's is really the way a lot of our men that go in service feel. The reason I say this, they tell their parents, their friends, their loved ones goodbye. They tell them not to fear. And yet, these men that go in, they're living their life on the line. And they're willing to do this for their country for their family. I'd like to tell you just a little bit about the Marine Corps Legion. I belong to the Marine Corps Legion. And the Marine Corps Legion is a group of men that come together to work and try to help other veterans. And the group that I belong to is the Green Bow Attachment. And we have our own meeting place down in Flatwoods. I'd say the men are split about halfway here in Ashland, halfway in Greenham. But we have a good organization, and the main thing is to help veterans. And everything that comes in financially, it goes to veterans. Anything that we do outside of that, it's at our expense. We pay for it. So I'm real glad to be a part of the Marine Corps Legion. You know, I want to tell you all that I appreciate you inviting me to speak to you today. And it is an honor to be able to serve your country. And today we do want to, Veterans Day, we want to honor them and to remember them and the price they paid. If you ever been up to the VA hospital in Huntington, and you see some of these men in there, some of them no arms, no legs, and you think about the price they paid. And sometimes we don't seem to appreciate it as much as we should. But again, I thank you for inviting me, and I want to say thanks. And this is a time that I'll never forget. Thank you.
Well, I do think that we are truly honored today to have Fred Boggs to speak. As a history teacher, I feel like your stories brought history off the pages of the books that I teach out of, and I appreciate that, Mr. Boggs. Also, I want to tell you that we are very privileged to have Mr. Boggs here today because all three of his daughters teach at this school, and his wife also taught at this school, and all of his grandchildren four of his grandchildren have graduated from Rosehill Christian School, and two are attending now, and a great-grandchild is in the K-4. What support Rosehill has for the What a special day this has been to have you here, and I'm going to have the kids come out and sing. Thank you all.
your service to our nation. Let us bow our heads in prayer. Heavenly Father, you established this nation long ago. And as this nation was being built, it has been tried, it has been tested. You gave us liberty through Christ and freedom. And our forefathers saw the need, that we need to protect it. And so they created our armed services. And over the years, men and now women volunteered to defend our rights, to protect our homes, and are willing to give that ultimate sacrifice. For those, Lord, who survived our wars, through peacetime, through the hard times, thank you for such people as these. May they be blessed, may they be honored, may their families know how much they are blessed by having them. And may we never forget. And we thank you, our Father, for our country and for these men and women who take up arms to protect us. It's in the name of Jesus we ask this. Amen. Elementary school, you're dismissed. Your classes.